one.
I'm not very comfortable with that just because I'm a huge David Lynch fan, and I don't think there's anybody like David Lynch. Even though I understand why they make that comparison because of the atmosphere. Yeah, well, you know, from an acting standpoint, you know, there's something very seductive and appealing about the idea of being able to create a character, become a character, to be able to have the time and patience to allow that character to grow. Which you have, you know, my whole career has been basically a format of 90 minutes to 2 hours. You know, that's sort of restricting. Here, you know, and that's kind of exciting. But I think because this particular show, from the very beginning, the tone was very much a cinematic feel to it. You know, at night, some night being executive and the director of the first show, that really set the tone that it was going to have a very cinematic feel. Because I thought of my own experience watching television, the kind of television that I think is interesting is no different than the types of films that I find interesting. And you shouldn't have to rely solely on the plot to find the story engagement. The characters and the atmosphere are just as important. I felt that this could be the type of show when you turned it on and you were just immediately compelled to watch it because of the characters, the atmosphere, and the world. And that you didn't have to know everything that was going on all the time. You didn't have to all be spelled out.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say that when you think about the film question, because that's a really interesting one in terms of character, but what I was going to say to your point, Matt, too, is like I think that right now, and it's not, you know, it's relatively new in the last number of years, that basically what we used to be able to make as an independent film is what you're able to do now on television. And you used to be able to tell character-driven stories that were complex and intricate and had the voice of a mature or a very clear vision that wasn't necessarily having to be of a certain genre where you have, you know, it's like sort of now the movies that are being made are these gigantic blockbusters which have a very specific kind of audience and game plan. And what's so nice is that what I think as actors that we've been afforded in television, and what's interesting with this too is, you know, FX is producing it for Fox, so it's sort of going with the model of what John Landgraf and those guys at FX have really done well, which is letting the creative people tell the story. And I think that what you get with that is something that feels very visceral and that is actually like people can actually really engage on a level because they're not necessarily being sold a product as much as, you know, getting to come along the story and get to know these characters in a way that I was raised with independent film and that was so exciting.
Yeah, and I felt like there was a fair amount of creative and doing this. I mean,
it was certainly a collaboration, for sure.
Yeah,
it was certainly.
I mean, there were things about it that were predetermined, you know. But overall, I mean, I felt like there was always room to kind of, you know, to adjust things.
And that's what's exciting too is that you end up, and any writer of television will tell you, like very rarely do they have all 10 written and they are set in stone, because all of a sudden something will happen and that inspires the writer to do this, and then the actor does something and they go, oh, that's interesting, maybe that character is this, and it becomes this great dialogue that you get to have over a period of time. Whereas with a film, oftentimes you kind of know how it has to tie up neatly in a bow, you know.
So the characters really determine sometimes where they want to go, and that tension that happens between the storyteller and the character is really vital to creating the story. I thought what was interesting about this, and I know I have to be careful about how much I give away, but how much of like the story is story creation.
Yeah.
You know, within the story. There's a story that's created and manipulated within the story. You know, I'm not going to give you much more than that, which mirrors what's
Right. No, there was a point where Toby and Matt and Melissa and myself were all together, and we literally we think we're becoming our character. I mean, basically, you know, everyone was having these responses that we were like, our characters were actually, you know, we're living these people's, you know, it's such a dreamlike element to this, and there's so many unanswered questions, and so I think there is something like doing theater where, because you're doing it daily, your body also is, you know, of course we're professionals and separate ourselves from our characters, but I do think it's always ruinating the back.
Well, I mean, like, one of the things I learned is very simple. In television, there is no ending. You know, like, so much is put on 3-act structure in film. 3-act structure does not really apply to this type of show. I mean, there is a structure here. In this show, these 10 episodes, a lot happens, and it's very well constructed. But, you know, there is no beginning and no end. But you have a character.
Yeah, and that you get to live with. And yeah, I have to say, I think I've always been compelled, since I started acting, by character and story and the people that are creating that, you know, that world, or the creative sort of team behind something. And I think what's just happening naturally is really great stuff is happening in TV. So from very early on, I've always done television, film, and theater, and I find it all to be, you know, it's just about where, it's just exciting that now, I remember when I first started that, you know, people were concerned I remember I did Spin City, and then I went and did a Brian De Palma movie with Nick Cage called Snake Eyes, and I remember people were like, you can go from TV to film? Like, this was like an actual thing, you know? And at this point, what's so great is they are so seamless, and certainly many actors who are discovered in television become huge movie stars. So what I think is just great about it, I don't find it a pressure, I just find it more like anywhere we can be doing good work and having great people being able to tell a story, that's really exciting. And if it's happening in TV, that's awesome. This is just another sort of
outlet to do this type of storytelling.
It's just unfortunate now because so few people, I mean, this is a whole other conversation, but that so few people, relatively speaking, go to the movies. You know, we used to go to the movies to watch a very intimate story about two people just because, and you wanted to share that with other people. Now people want to have those experiences in their home, and they only take their families because it's so expensive also for a lot of people, to a huge movie that the entire family can see, that there's, you know, and there's a real place for those movies. How can we find a place for that in independent film? I really hope we will return to that, because independent film to me is...
Yeah, and I love the big screen. I do love the big screen, but the audience, the television audience is vast. There's a really intelligent, hungry television audience that can't get to movies because they're in the middle of their lives, you know, and families and work. And so I do think that the audience for this show probably is the same audience we would like to see, that we would see independent films. And, you know, and I mean, like, the smartest people I know are always talking about good television. We hope that we're really good television, you know, that we're doing it. And I think, as far as the medium goes, I mean, it has the potential to be the best, you know, because you can tell the stories with patience. You have the luxury of being able to. We don't have to resolve that. We can dig deeper. We can explore more with it. I think, unfortunately, some of the stuff that's happened over the years is practical, pragmatic business stuff can get in the way of the creative part of it. And that's sometimes, okay, well, we have to shoot, we only shoot 2 days outside and then 3 days have to be on the stage, and that's the way it is. And those sort of considerations can kind of, I think, drag the medium down. But, you know, this is great. I mean, the tone was set from the beginning, Night, and all the different directors that we had. And this is going to be, each one is going to be like its own film.
And I think because we're all storytellers, and I love stories being told, I think anywhere, when you can find the right marriage of a project and a medium, you know, because there are certain stories that's a 2-hour story, and that's the way that it's going to totally kick ass, you know. And in a case like this, it really, what was exciting is we almost couldn't even tell, there's so much more story to tell. Like in 10 hours, we still are scratching the surface of this really interesting world of characters.
I had to be careful.
I know.
Give away everything.
Go for it. I'm gonna